Hi, Andy. Thank you for joining me today. You're from Zeta Potential and you are the chief alchemist.
Yeah. Thanks, Guy Anderson. And how are you this merry morning?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. As I was saying to you earlier on, I'm just watching the clouds suddenly appear and then turn grey, and the rain will follow, I'm sure. But it was going to be a nice day until they started doing that. What about your end?
Yeah, it's delightfully chilly down here south of Melbourne. It's Antarctic winds and freezing, but yeah, it's Australia. We're used to it.
What does it get to in the summer where you are? What sort of temperatures do you normally
Um,
see?
every you peak it, you get usually get 3 or 4 40+ days.
Wow.
Um, Probably the average is high 30s, but it's bone dry. So, you're struggling to work a spit up on those days. It's uh,
Yeah, I
it's
can
it's
imagine.
pretty dry.
So you have
But
quite extreme weather there.
yeah, yeah. But it doesn't snow. Well, it does somewhere, but it doesn't snow down here.
Do
We're
you
too
ever
close.
see the snow? Do you ever go anywhere where it
Yeah,
does
yeah,
snow?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. They got a fair bit in the mountains, but for us to go skiing, it's sort of 5 hour drive
Oh,
one way.
crikey. Mind you,
So,
my son lived out in Australia for a few years, and he said that everybody is just used to driving long distances. It's just normal.
oh yeah, yeah. Well, I remember going to the UK a few years ago, and I remember talking to our friends, and I said, well, it's only that far on the map, and they
Mm.
looked at me and they said, oh, it's 2 hours, and I said, no, but it's only that far. In Australia, that's like 25 minutes. Well, it's very different.
Yeah.
We're used to driving like 400 kilometers a day is not terribly far.
Crikey. That here people just have a completely different outlook to that. They just think that that would
Yeah.
be, impossible. You'd never drive that. I used to drive all the time for my job. I used to drive all over the UK, and
Mm.
I would drive up to Scotland 4 or 5 hours, sometimes longer, and I didn't think anything of it. But a lot of people here, I've noticed it more so. A lot of people don't really leave the area. They won't venture out the county.
No, we're starting to see more and more of that here. But I mean, in Australia, you don't get very 15-minute cities wouldn't work very well because 15 minutes doesn't get you very far.
Is that something that they are trying to implement there?
They've talked about it, and
Mm,
we take our hats off to the ULEZ warriors.
absolutely.
There's more than one way to destroy a camera.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think what they do is quite remarkable, to be honest.
I agree. I agree. It takes some
Yeah.
guts, doesn't it? And at the end of the day, if the government, whether it's local or national, are there to enforce what we want, then the question is, when did we ask for those?
Exactly
They
right.
forget that they're public servants. I think they forget that they're supposed to um, act on our behalf to implement things we want. But that
Mm.
doesn't seem to be the case. So the whole thing needs to go. It's all got to be scrapped. It's so corrupt. It just we
Every single layer of it.
and I think like people say, well, let's vote for someone else. Let's get a different party. And no, the whole thing is fundamentally flawed. It's because the strings are
Yeah.
pulled by people like the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization and
Or the
so on.
banks.
Yeah,
Just
that
just
it's
just
it's
the
got to
banks.
go. It has to
The
stop.
banks, the banks and the financiers ultimately control everything because they control money flow.
Yes. We're sort of
And
going off tangent here, aren't we, a bit?
we are. We are.
We
We,
could do
we,
this all day.
we can. I came on here and I wanted to thank you for this because I came on here to talk about Zeta potential
Yes.
and what zeta potential is, and if you go and talk to a doctor and you have a chat to them and you ask them about it, they'll give you a blank stare because they haven't got the vaguest idea what zeta potential is. They should, but they don't.
Do you think
uh,
that's, sorry to interrupt you, Andy, do you think that that's
mm,
because they do know about it, but they have a narrative that they follow? Because I experienced that myself once. I was nervous about a flight, and I said that I had purchased something in the chemist called Rescue Remedy, and you just spray it on your
mm,
tongue if you're feeling a little bit anxious. And he said he'd never heard of it. And I thought, well, I know you have heard of it because it's in every pharmacist in the country, in every airport. You have heard of it. It's just not something you can prescribe. So it's easier for you to say you haven't heard of it so you can dismiss it.
No, I just don't think they've heard of it. I don't think it's not, we've spoken to quite a lot of doctors here, and they've never come across it. Now,
Right,
chemists would, because it's used in chemistry. So zeta potential is actually it's a measurement in microvolts. So your blood carries both positive and negative ions, and that can be measured. And the measurement is called the zeta potential. And
right.
it's a relatively simple thing. It sounds simple, but when if you're misfortunate enough to go to a hospital, and I mean that in every sense of the word,
Yes, yes.
um, if you are misfortunate enough to go there, then one of the first things they do is they'll put you on a drip, which is saline, which is salt. Um, and that's it, what that does. They'll tell you that it's there to hydrate you, but in actual fact, what they're doing is they're boosting your zeta potential. Most of them wouldn't realize that's what they're doing, but that's the effect of putting you on a drip. It's boosting your zeta
Right,
potential. And none of us want to walk around with a drip in our arm. That's ridiculous. But that's what it does. But the critical element in it is the salts. Now, the product we teach people how to make is an electrolyte, which is salt-based. And it's very, very simple and very easy to make. But it's what it does that's so amazing, so critical.
right.
So just to fill you in, just to sort of put some background in this, normally when I do this, I talk about myself a fair bit and I talk about my interaction with the um, the medical industrial complex,
Yeah,
which we've come to know it as, and I have an enormous distrust of that system, which is very well justified. But tonight for me, today for you, I'm going to talk about my daughter. Kate she's had epilepsy for 25 years. And we discovered only fairly recently that she was effectively being used as an experiment.
sorry, Andy, before you go on, she's had it for
Yep.
25 years. Is she 25 years old, or is this something that developed during her childhood?
No, she started this at 16.
Right.
She had a trauma at birth, and we were told that it was a probability, but between the gaps of sort of 4 and 5 and 16 when she first presented with it, well, you tend to forget during that period of time because life goes on.
Yeah.
So she's had this for 25 years. It's a particular type that is difficult to control. So she's on quite a bit of medication. And but we found out recently that they've actually been using her as an experiment over these years.
Trust. Right.
But the thing is that experiment was potentially fatal, and
Oh,
we found out about it. But does have a good ending. It's okay. So to give you an idea, just prior to COVID, Kate was having around 35 seizures a day.
oh my God.
Now, these aren't what you describe as, full epileptic seizures. These are very short gaps,
Hmm.
but it is an altered state of consciousness, and it's quite debilitating because it affects everything: mood, energy, vitality, memory, her entire life.
How is she
That
able
was
to
quite serious
function? You know,
with
how
difficulty.
so actually going to work and being
She
able to,
doesn't. She can't hold down a job. She can't
bless
drive.
her.
She can't
Oh,
swim. But she's married. She's been married for coming up to 10 years. Her husband is uh, one, he's a keeper. That's the only way I can
oh,
describe him.
oh, that's
He's a
lovely.
keeper. He's just a saint. He's just a lovely, lovely, lovely bloke. So, and they're in a good place, but this was really affecting her. And we were getting increasingly desperate, searching for answers for this. And I had a phone call from our GP one afternoon, and he was a friend of ours for more than 30 years, quite a close friend. He rang me and he said, Andy, go down and buy a bag of salt and vinegar chips. He said, I need you to get Kate to eat them straight away. And I sort of went, what?
Mm.
He said, her salt levels are so low, it's critical. I'll get her on salt tablets, but I need you to get salt into her straight away. So what it actually panned out was that her salt levels were so low that she could have slipped into a coma and died.
Christ, right.
Now, I can't even begin to describe the frustration that she'd been under specialists for 15 years and one specialist for 10. And as we found this out months later, that the medication that she's on actually strips the salt from the body.
Right.
Well, they've been diagnosed it. They knew this full well, but they'd never bothered to do the blood tests to monitor it. And in effect, that caused those seizures. A lot of those seizures we found out were actually stress related, not fully epileptic. We didn't even know those existed. We found out afterwards. They never bothered disclosing it. Anyway, we found out was that we actually obtained copies of the letters between the specialist and the GP.
So they were communicating, but not actually involving you. You
Well,
weren't in the loop.
no, well, we weren't in that loop, that's for certain. And then when COVID hit, her specialist literally abandoned her. He
Oh,
refused to
wow.
take calls. He refused to take emails. In the end, I spoke to our GP and I asked him, not very politely, to make amendments to her medication because she was clearly over medicated at that stage. Once we increased her salt levels, the seizures just started coming down, coming down, coming down. And we recognized that she was now over medicated because they
Mhm.
kept on increasing the medication to try and counteract these seizures, which is all doctors ever do. If they can give you a pill, if they can give you more medication to try and do something, they're never
Mm.
looking for the cause. And the cause was created by their own ineptitude. That's the word. So um, I spoke to him. He said yes, he would help because my threat was I would take the tablets and cut them in half. And after months and months and months of weaning her back on those, she came back to herself. And to give you an idea, uh, the last 3 years she's been virtually seizure free.
Oh, that's incredible.
Same medication, in fact, just a lesser dosage.
Mhm.
But that's the difference that saline, the difference that salt makes.
So I'm guessing that you have, if you wanted to, you have a case there.
Yeah, no, no. We spoke to a friend of ours who's a lawyer, and he looked at us and he said, You will never, ever, ever get anybody to say that anybody did anything wrong." He said, "You're just wasting your time."
So despite the fact they over medicated her, resulting in these
Hmm.
seizures,
Hmm.
that
He said,
nobody anywhere
You can
takes
never prove it."
responsibility for it.
That's not, no. And this is somebody that that she'd been seeing, 3 or 4 times a year for 8 or 9, 10 years at $400 a pop, mind you,
Christ.
every
Wow.
single time. So, here we are 5 years later. She's virtually seizure free. She has been definitely for the last 3 years. Her salt levels are monitored, and she uses our product, which is Zeta Plus.
Yeah.
And again, it's an electrolyte, it's a salt balancer, and that works really, really well. And my point of that story is salt. It's so incredibly critical to our function, and it's so easily overlooked.
It's funny because just literally a couple of days ago, I was talking to Richard Vobes. I don't know if you know Richard. He's got a yeah,
I love his channel.
yeah. He's got a big following, but it's he was demonetized
He
a
was.
while ago now, and since then he's become a little bit disheartened with YouTube, understandably, and he's not putting the content out there as much as he was, and he's decided because his income's been cut to focus on writing a book, which he's nearly done. And the book is about it's a fictional story of a town that turned its back on the local government and decided to set up its own government, its own council, that basically did all of the things that we ask for and none of the things we don't. So cameras were
Mm,
taken down and
mm,
5G masts removed and so on. But the reason for bringing Richard up is because I said to him the other day that I was speaking to someone who had a serious migraine, and it was because they were dehydrated. And I said, well, if you think about it, if you go to hospital and you're dehydrated, it's a saline solution. They don't give you a glass of water. It's
No.
about the salt. The salt's so
Mhm.
important, and people don't realize that because we've been told that salt is bad for us, just like
Mm.
we've been told so many other things. I mean, here when I was a kid, I was told that eggs were bad for us, and
Yeah, I
anything that
remember that.
has, yeah, it's anything that has some sort of benefit, health benefit that cannot be prescribed, and doesn't generate income to the system, if you like. Um,
Well, mind you, the salt that you get out of supermarkets is dangerous.
Oh yes, I'm not talking about
Yeah.
table salt. Yeah, yeah. I'm not talking about your refined.
No,
Yeah. Um,
exactly.
but then have you
So
heard about the theory that Himalayan salt may well be the fleshy coloured?
I
Uh,
have that the blood of well, giants.
yes, yes. I hear
I
that
have.
daily. Yeah,
It's
it's
an interesting, it's a very interesting thing. And
it
Himalayan is
is.
good. Celtic sea salt is the best you can get.
That's what we use. Yeah.
Yep, that's what we use too. Celtics,
Mm,
and we've taught Kate, and this is how silly it is. We taught Kate, and she actually carries Celtic sea salt with her, and she dips her finger in it and has a mouthful of salt every 2 or 3 times every day to
brilliant.
top her salt levels up. Now, as you said, we're told that it's incredibly bad, and no, it's not. The
Mm.
right salt's actually incredibly good for you. So
So is this how you? So it's through your daughter that you
that was part of it,
started
yeah.
researching electrolytes.
Well, the reason the rest of it was through me. That was through
Hmm.
a whole range of things that I went through to prove doctors wrong
Right.
over cholesterol. So that was a whole other story. But um, the work that went into this particular electrolyte was actually started probably it was more than 50 years ago. A guy by the name of Thomas Riddick did most of the work into it. And then he trained another doctor by the name of T.C. McDaniel, I think his name was. And he did thousands and thousands of experiments using precise amounts of the mix. And that's, potassium citrate and potassium bicarbonate until he got to a point where it had the precise effect that he needed without any negatives to it. Because what
Yeah.
can happen with salt is you can take too much of it and you reverse it. It's like a U curve.
Yeah.
So the idea is to get to that point at the bottom of the U curve, but not come back up the other side, which is why you don't have too much of something. You have a
Hmm.
measured amount. And then probably the other one was Jared Pollack. He wrote a book called The Fourth Phase of Water, which you can still get on Amazon. And he actually documented the proof of what's called exclusion zone water, which
Hmm.
is which is commonly referred to as structured water, and also called liquid crystalline water. And it's H3O2. And there's a lot of talk out there. If you Google it, they'll just say that it's nonsense. It doesn't exist, and
Yeah.
whatever. But it does, and it's been documented, and it's been thoroughly proven to exist. So what happens with zeta potential is as you feed negative ions into your body and they increase in your body, it allows the walls of your blood vessels, all of them, to create a barrier on the surface called structured water or H3O2. And as you increase the negative ions, it increases that barrier. And that barrier creates a really slippery hydrophobic environment. So your blood slips, slips faster, slips better. And if you think about all of those little lines on your face and your feet and your hands, and you can see those tiny veins,
Yeah.
well, that's blood that's not moving through a capillary.
Right.
It's stopped.
Hmm.
That's why you can see them. And that's called blood sludge. Because you never see it on a 19-year-old, do you?
No, you don't. No. No, you're
No.
quite right.
And it takes us our lifetimes to accumulate this, but it not only is it reversible, um, zeta potential is probably one of the most critical things that we can do. Because have you ever read Midwestern Doctor?
No.
Okay, she writes a blog. It's an anonymous blog. She's just called Midwestern Doctor.
I'm
But
guessing she's from America if she's saying
yeah,
Midwest. Yeah.
Midwest. Yep. And she said that the zeta potential concept underlies many diseases, and improving zeta potential cures or improves many complex diseases. And it
Right.
is quite an extraordinary thing. And it's something that she certainly has every day. It's something that we have every day. But if you think of your blood, if you think of it, you think of our body as a battery. We're actually a negative battery. So rather than being positive, we're negative. It's all inverse, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
everything. Yeah,
You have
absolutely
to think
everything seems
positively
to
about
be.
negativity.
Yeah.
So our objective, of course, is to increase the negative ions, and there's a few really good ways you can go about doing that. You can do it naturally. There's some good ways of doing it, but I'm just going to talk for a minute about the negatives, because you think about what works against zeta potential, what increases the positive ions, and reduces that structured water.
Right.
So your environment is the most critical part of that, and in particular, the water that you drink. So I always say to people, the very first thing that you do is you filter the water that you drink, and you filter the water that you're showering. And as an absolute minimum, you filter it to remove heavy metals. If you think about what's being dropped, it's being dropped in our water supplies.
Yes.
It's being dropped everywhere, and we know the metals that are involved in those.
Yes.
And they're going straight into, so they're absorbed through your skin when you shower, and you consume them when you drink it. So the
Yeah.
best thing that you can possibly do is filter it. And if you can get to reverse osmosis water for your drinking water, even better. You don't need to exclusively drink it, but it's a good way of getting rid of it, because the only thing that'll ever remove fluoride is reverse osmosis
Right.
because of the particle size. So that's the first thing. You know, everything that's in our environment. If you go down and get you go down to, I'm just trying to think of what's your local supermarket called? Um,
We've got several, but I suppose the more popular one would be Tesco's, but I
Tesco's.
refuse
Yeah,
to shop
yeah.
there.
No, I'm the same. We have two major ones over here, and I won't set foot in them, but
No.
a lot of people do, and they go in there and they'll buy a packaged meal that's in an aluminium container.
Mm,
Now, aluminium is the single worst thing that you can come into contact with, because it instantaneously collapses your zeta potential.
I
That's
wasn't
how
aware
bad
of
this
that.
stuff is. So every element of aluminium, every time you put it over food and you put it in a fridge, every time you do that, you're putting particles of aluminium into the food that you eat.
Right.
And my strong advice to people is clean your water up and get rid of your aluminium. And
Right.
we had people say, "Well, how are we supposed to heat things in the oven?" Well, we use baking paper and we
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we
twist it up
use.
like that and we
Mm,
throw it in there. It works the same way.
yeah.
It's you just got to think around it. Goodness knows we managed before foil.
Yes, we did. Yes,
So
absolutely
there's a
right.
way we can do it.
Mm,
But that's one of the along with the chemicals that we come into contact. Um, Aluminium is one of the worst, and it's in everything. It's insidious.
mm,
People will buy a pre-cooked roast chicken, for example.
mm,
I don't know why they would, but they do,
yeah.
because it's convenient, it's quick. They're on the way home from work and they grab a bagged chook, and it's in an aluminium bag,
Mm.
aluminium lined bag. It's the worst thing you can possibly do. So stay away from that stuff. So then I look at the other side and I say, well, what helps? What are the things that brings negative ions into your body? And the one that we're all familiar with is grounding.
Yeah.
And the reason that works is because your direct contact with the earth, you're closing the circuit on a battery, on an electrical field, and you're allowing negative ions to be brought into your body. And by doing it, you're improving your zeta potential, which is why you feel good. And
So
it
f
has the same thing. Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, so grounding is something my wife and I do, and a lot of people that I know do, but it's something that people can't get their heads around. A lot of people don't understand actually what it means and what you are doing. And
Hmm.
I sort of try and simplify it. We've all experienced giving someone a static shock or had one getting out of a car. And
Hmm.
I just try to explain that it's very, it's kind of a similar process to that. We are, as you said, we're batteries, and I wrote about that in my first book, that if you look at the judicial system, we are charged and placed in a cell.
Yeah.
Everything is about our energy, and we
Hmm.
are little batteries wandering around. And it's also a military term. You have a battery,
Hmm.
you know, and
Yes.
to ground yourself is so very important. But a lot of people do think that I'm barking mad when I talk about this.
Uh, was probably firmly in that camp 10 or 15 years ago. Until you actually sit down and look at the research that's gone into it, especially in relation to being a battery, and you can. There was an experiment done a while back. I'll see if I can find the link and I'll send it to you. But they've actually got a visual using an imaging camera, and you can actually physically see the benefits that it's giving. It's quite extraordinary.
Mm,
So grounding works for those reasons because essentially you're grounding a battery.
mm.
You're in direct contact with the earth, and yes, you have to take your shoes off.
Yes,
A
yes,
lot of people just
absolutely.
said,
Mm.
and sitting on a footpath or a concrete block isn't going to
No,
work. Get your feet into the earth.
yeah,
Hyperbaric chambers, they also have a strong effect on your zeta potential, but it is quite short-lived. And the same for infrared saunas. And a lot of infrared saunas work particularly well, but they have to work in what's called the 3000 nanometer spectrum.
right.
A lot of the cheaper saunas, a lot of the stuff that comes out of China doesn't. It works straight into the 6 and 7,000 nanometer and just bypasses the first. So you do your research on them. They are extremely beneficial, extremely beneficial. I can't strong it. We've got one. We use it 3 or 4 times a week, and we always feel really good after it. And you only need 20 minutes, so
Yeah.
they work well. Going down to the beach,
Mm,
waterfalls.
yeah.
It's ionized water. Those tiny little particles of water that are dancing around, especially in Australia, because we've got a lot of surf beaches.
Yes.
We are where we are on the peninsula. We're exposed both to the bay on one side and to Bass Strait on the other side. So we
Hmm.
get a lot of ocean water blowing over us. So we get a lot of ionized water, which is good. Makes it harder to spray us.
Yes. Yeah. That is something that seems to be happening no matter where on
Oh,
Earth you are.
yeah, that's exactly right. So all of those things introduce negative ions, or that they change the ionic structure within your body. And again, that comes back to being able to make your blood slipperier. And it does all sorts of good things to you. And I
Mm,
will stress this is not something that's instantaneous. When we first started using Zeta Plus, which is a product that we made, when we first started using this, it was something that it probably took 3 or 4 weeks before we really noticed any difference. And then we really noticed some changes and differences, like huge. And I'll run through those in a
sure.
minute. But you understand that from a blood perspective, your heart, the push from your heart isn't pumping blood through a capillary at the end of your finger. There's another action that actually works to actually pull it through, and it's the electrical charge.
Yeah.
So if you're disrupting that electrical charge by dropping your zeta potential, you're disrupting the flow of the blood, which is why it slows. And eventually it's going to back up and back up and back up and back up and back up until it gets to a point where it clots.
And I'm
So
guessing this is going to affect circulation.
that's exactly what it is. It
Mm,
is it is 100% circulation. Cranial nerves in the face are one of the first things that can be positively affected through zeta potential. They're also one of the telltale signs for injuries from certain things that are administered. So
right.
zeta potential can immediately and positively affect people that have had adverse reactions.
Right. So this is the medical intervention that took place a few years ago.
it can do some really good things.
Mm,
I'm not saying it's the only thing, definitely not, but it can do some very good things. But you think about your brain, it's full of tiny capillaries.
mm,
And if you can open up some of the channels that may be sludging in there, it's going to help everything.
yeah.
So um, it the positives that came out, and I'll speak about it from myself, from my experience.
Okay.
We've got a number of people that have been using this for quite a while. Some have had fairly instant reactions, but some of them are quite extraordinary. And every time we question it and go into the detail of it, it always comes back to circulation, always comes back to that blood flow.
Hmm.
So I've had gastric reflux since I was in my late 20s.
Yeah.
And for more than 15 years, my wonderful doctor gave me
Mm,
omeprazole,
right.
which is what just about everybody who's got gastric reflux gets
Yeah.
thrown on to, because, how do we fix the problem you've got? We give you drugs.
Yes. Yes, of course. That's their answer.
And,
That's all they are able to do, isn't it?
and if that won't fix it, we'll give you more.
Yeah.
So that's their solution. So I'd been on omeprazole like a good lad for quite a long time. And when we shifted down to the peninsula, I changed doctors. And I won't go into that, but uh, I said to him I wanted to come off this omeprazole, so he suggested another medication which was more easily obtained, called Pepsid, which I could end up buying from Amazon of all places. And that I was on that for probably about a year, but it allowed me to wean myself off the omeprazole.
Yeah.
I realized after about 4 or 5 months, and it happened because I'd forgotten to take a tablet at night, hadn't had any sort of reaction, and I thought, oh, I won't take one tomorrow night, and I'll see how that goes.
Mm,
Well, that was 11 months ago. I stopped taking all tablets for gastric reflux 11 months ago. I've never
wow.
had anything since. And the only thing that's changed is that every single day I have a glass of Zeta Plus,
Right.
the electrolyte. That's the only thing that has changed. So that's had a massive difference on me, because I'm now at 60, coming up to 63. I now have no drugs in my life whatsoever, nor does my wife. So none, which is pretty good. My blood pressure, I as I said that sometimes I tell my story sometimes, um, and that involved a lot of things to do with blood pressure. My blood pressure has been sitting at about 145 over 85, 88 for quite a few years. And the doctors keep saying, "Oh, yeah, you're hypertensive. You're this. You need to do this. You're gonna have to use drugs," because that's their
Yeah.
answer.
Yes. Yes.
And so my blood pressure is currently 122 over 75, and has been for the last 11
Wow.
months.
Wow.
So it's dropped, it's
Mm,
maintained. I don't do anything for it. I don't go out and run marathons or
mm.
anything like that. I'm too old for that.
No,
Um,
you're not.
but so these are two immediate effects that it had on us: an increased alertness and mental clarity, increased energy. Um, you don't get up at 3 o'clock in the morning for a wee anymore, because you don't need to. You sleep 8, 9 hours without any problems at all. Much better quality of sleep. One of our clients, who's a friend of ours, um, we sent him home. He comes around to do our gardening. We sent him home with this is we put it into bottles. So that's a bottle of the water. We
Yeah.
sent him home with one of those and said, "Look, we just want you to try this for a month, and just see how you go." So anyway, he came back a month later, and he walked in here. He said the very first thing he did is he said, "I need 2 bottles of the electrolytes." I said, "Oh," I said, "Okay, why?" He said, "Well, 2 days after," he said, "I started taking it." He said, "2 days into that," he said, I was getting dressed to go to work, and my wife called out and said, "What have you done differently?" And he said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "For the last umpteen years," she said, "I can hear your asthma in the shower as soon as you get
No,
into it, because I can hear you wheezing." And she said, "You haven't wheezed for the last 3 mornings. What are you doing that's different?"
that's incredible.
And that's what he'd been doing. So, and I think that was 7 months ago. He carries a Ventolin pump with him as a just in case.
Yeah.
Said in 7 months he's used it twice,
Wow.
whereas previously he was using it, 3 or 4 times a day.
Oh, that's incredible. That's
So
absolutely incredible.
we've seen some really amazing, really positive things and small things, a reduction in fine veins.
Mm.
Um, my eyebrows are losing their grey. Sadly, my hair's just not growing back, but I'm working. That's my next project. But
Is it?
I think sorry,
Is it really?
no, it's not.
Oh,
It's
it's
not
funny
so.
you say that because there's a guy on Facebook who's called AJ Labs, as in laboratory,
Yeah.
and he's a friend of a friend, and he said to me, "Humour me. I've developed something to regrow hair, all
Oh,
natural. He works with mushrooms and also everything that he works with is natural. So, like you, he's an alchemist." Um, and he said, just try it and see what you think. So every night he posted me it. Every night before I go to bed, I rub a little bit here. Now I went bald, over 20 years ago, so it's not something that I'm
same here.
concerned about. But I just thought, okay, I'll humour him. The hair's growing back. It's growing back. I
Just
have
don't put
hair
it
here.
don't put it in one patch.
No, no, I've been rubbing it all over there. I did exactly what he asked me to do. I now have hair growing back. Even my wife can spot it. I can feel
Oh
it.
my goodness.
It's bizarre. And he went bald quite young, so he went to the barbers. He let it grow, and he went to the barbers, and the barber said, "This doesn't seem right. You've got hair where you didn't have last time I saw you. What's going on?" And he showed it, and the bloke was absolutely stunned. But it appears to work.
It's not impossible.
It's bizarre, isn't it?
Nothing's impossible. It's just a question, if they can't monetize it themselves, if they
That's
can't
right.
patent it, if they can't collar it and control it, then it ceases to exist.
Yes, and that
You know,
seems to link all the way back to Rockefeller and the petroleum.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, and did this exist pre 1776? Well, we don't know.
Mm,
There's no records. They were destroyed,
mm,
so we don't know. But I do know that in the last 50 or 60 years that this has been in existence, that it's been well known. It's literally just been forgotten.
mm.
It's
Purposely forgotten.
deliberately, purposely
Yeah,
forgotten.
it's like Graham Hancock. I don't know if you ever read
Mhm.
or watched anything from
Yes.
Graham Hancock,
Yep.
but he says we are a civilization with amnesia.
Mm.
But I would say forced amnesia.
Yes, very
Mm,
much so.
mm.
So my mission, I should say our, because it's my wife and I, but our mission is to teach. So
Right.
the formula that we do this with, the potassium citrate and the bicarbonate, it's a relatively simple, easy product to make and mix. And yes, we do package it and we can ship it, but our main objective is to be able to teach people how to do it for themselves, because that's the community, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, we don't want other people doing it. If we can obtain it for ourselves and we can make it, and that little sachet, by the way, that's got 185 grams of citrate and bicarbonate mix, and that will
Right.
make 3 months worth.
Oh wow. And what does that
I
so
think
what
it's
does that cost if I was to go on your
60
website
US,
and
60 US dollars.
which is nothing, is it really? What's that, about
Well,
£40? Something like
it works out. I think we did the calculation. It works out to about 70 cents a day, which is it's under a pound.
yeah. Yeah.
It's
A
less than a
long
pound a
way.
day.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, a
And
long
you
way.
can, and if you obtain, that's buying it here. If you obtain the ingredients, which you can get through a number of sources, um, and you can make this yourself, and you can keep a bottle of this in your fridge. This is ours.
Hmm.
So I just pulled it out of the fridge before. So, for example, that's a 1 litre bottle. We make up three of those at a time.
Yeah.
1 litre does me for a month. 1 litre does my wife for a month. So we generally make up 6 litres, and we'll have 3 months in stock, and we just keep them in the fridge.
So
We
how much
take.
of that are you drinking a day? Just a swig?
This is the interesting part. 2 tablespoons.
That's it.
That's it. 30, is that 30 mil? Can't remember. 15. Yeah, it's 30 mil. I should read the back of my own bottle. It
So
says
that's a
30 mil.
so a bit of a strange question for you, but what would happen if I drank the entire thing?
Not a lot. You'd probably feel a bit unwell because you're drinking highly salted water.
Yeah,
But we actually had a client email us only a few weeks ago and say their son picked the bottle up out of the fridge and took a few really big swigs. And other than feeling a little unwell, he was perfectly fine.
right.
It could
Brilliant.
act as a bit of a laxative.
Right, okay.
It's
Okay. So if you're
probably not something you
constipated,
want to do, but
not a bad thing.
it's not going to kill you, that's for sure,
No.
because it's just an electrolyte.
Yeah.
And
So
that's the simple.
I've got this theory that the Tartarians and perhaps civilizations before that ran a very light electrical charge through water fountains.
I would almost certainly say that if you have a look at the relics that they founded,
Mm,
and you look at the construction of some of them, I would say almost certainly.
mm. There does seem to be something in that. So
Mm.
through your company, your and your wife's company, we
Yep.
can go onto your website and we can order
Yes.
that product, but we can also arrange training
Yeah.
courses.
So what we did was rather than me trying to do 500 podcasts a year and repeating myself ad nauseum, which would bother everybody, we set up an online course that you can do. We broke it up into four parts. It takes about 30, 40 minutes roughly, but it takes you through why you use it, how you use it, where you source it, how you make it, how you store it, and how much it costs. And
Right.
we break everything down through that course. I'll send you the links so that you can distribute them, but it's a very simple process. Our preference is for people to teach themselves. Now, sure, I understand that not everybody has the time, and they're more than welcome to order it from us if they prefer. We're happy to supply it. We've got good product here, and we can ship worldwide. So that's not an issue. We can do it. The only thing we don't ship is we don't ship water because the
Yes, of
cost
course.
is staggering and there's too much
So
risk with it.
how long does it take if I ordered it today? How long would it take to arrive typically?
About 10 days to get to the
Oh, that's
UK.
good. Oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, there's a few barriers at border, but because it's an electrolyte, there's no risk. It's not a chemical per
Mm.
se. So no, a faster shipping. In fact, I think we've actually had it reach the UK before it reached Queensland, but that's just a mark of the
Wow.
Australian Postal Service,
Oh, really? Yeah, ours isn't fantastic here either.
which is pretty lousy at the best of times. But Um, yeah, so we can ship it pretty much everywhere. But again, our main focus is for people to be able to learn why and to teach themselves. And we put a price on the website. We put a $97 price for that course on the website. This is US dollars, by the way.
Hmm.
But we put a bottom price of $1. So we say to people, if you can afford to pay it, please do, because it helps the people that can't. Not everybody can.
Yes.
Not everybody's in a position to do that. Some people have paid us $1 and we're happy for them to pay that. It's whatever people can afford. Because the art of it is to get the knowledge into the hands of people so that they can actually do this for themselves,
Mm.
which is what we all want. It's what we need to do.
And how does the course work? I mean, is it a virtual course or is it?
Just an
Yeah.
online course. You just plug in, you've got a bunch of videos there, and you can sit there and watch me go through them.
Mm.
That's basically what it is. But it works amazingly well. And we've got a lot of people worldwide that are making their own very successfully.
Oh, that's fantastic. So
Mm,
you've had some really good feedback from this.
great feedback. We just really, really, really positive, good feedback. No negatives, which is phenomenal. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, no negative feedback whatsoever, and
Do
some
you?
great positives.
I'm just going to ask, do you have a YouTube channel?
Yes. Do I use a YouTube channel? Not really. For example, I'll publish a link to this and I'll put it on there.
Yeah.
Um, but we probably rely more. We've got an X channel as well, but we probably rely more on just talking to people and getting the word out there.
Yeah.
rather than pushing it through the social media platforms and the media channels. Because there's always that risk of anything with YouTube that they might decide suddenly that they don't like you.
Yes, yeah, I have that problem with them demonetized. So yeah.
So many people have that problem in
Mm.
it, and until somebody does something about, well, yeah, sorry, that was just wishful thinking.
Were you going to mention freedom of speech there, or?
Yeah, it was entering my mind, and then I realized that in Australia we've lost all freedom of speech. We have what's called the e-Karen.
The E Karen, I like that.
The
Yeah.
e-Karen, that's what she's called. They appointed
Mm,
somebody, and she's engineered to block access for anybody under the age of 18 from YouTube
really?
and
So no one under
Facebook.
the age of 18 can
Yeah, you
access.
won't be allowed. No, you'll have to go through a facial recognition test and pass it. Otherwise, they won't give you access to the social media platforms. I
Really?
kid you not.
Have you ever been on BitChute? Have you
Yeah.
heard of BitChute? Well, that's now banned here in the UK.
Is it really?
Yeah,
Oh, I
yeah.
must get back onto it then.
Little while ago now. Yeah, I had a channel on there. I'd had it for years. Gone. Yeah,
And
all
they
gone.
just blocked it.
Yeah, we can no longer access it unless you've got a VPN. You can't get onto
Yeah, and
BitChute.
that's going to be the same thing in Australia. It'll be VPN access, and like the thing that gets me, I feel like saying to you feel like saying to these people, you're dealing with kids who are smarter at technology than you will ever be in your lifetime,
Hmm.
and you're telling them they can't do something. Well, I
Yeah, well,
remember being a teenager.
yeah. It's a
You
red
tell
rag
me
to
I
bull.
can't do it,
Yeah.
I'm going to do it.
And see, my grievance with this is that whose decision is it what you can and can't do? Now, I think once you're 18 and you're technically an adult, you have the right to decide things like that for yourself. And up until that point, then your guardian, your parent, has that legal
Yep,
right. I don't think that that right lands in the lap of somebody else. Certainly not a group of
couldn't
people.
agree with you more.
So where did we sign an agreement for a group of people or a commission or a body to decide what we can and can't access? I wasn't in that meeting. I never got the memo.
Oh,
It wasn't brought
you
to
know
my
the answer
attention.
to that. It's a big club, and we're not a part of it.
Mm. It's just
And
got to.
and
It's got to stop.
it has to. I'm not. Well, yeah, it's above my pay grade as to how that's going to happen. But I will sit with a bag of popcorn and a beer and watch it happen when it does, and
Mm.
thoroughly enjoy it. I just can't work out how that's going to happen, but I believe it will. I've never
Yeah.
seen I've never seen the world in as much turmoil.
No, it's like we're waiting for something big to happen, isn't it? And
Yeah.
my dad messaged me on Sunday morning to say had I seen what had happened in Iran, and I don't care.
No.
I don't care.
Nope.
It's out there specifically to spread more fear. It's it's the same people always behind all of this. I think the way that we can silently protest, if you like, is to not watch the news, not buy the newspapers, and totally
Mm.
disengage. And when you're given the opportunity to vote, don't. If nobody
Yeah,
votes, they can't form
we
a
stopped
parliament.
voting. We stopped voting years ago, and which sort of goes against everything that we were indoctrinated into
Mm,
believing. And in Australia, our voting system is not first past the post. It's a preferential voting system, which is much, much worse. So what they do in Australia is they just stack the voting and rig it. So
yeah,
you can go to a polling booth, for example, and say, "Well, I want to vote for this person." So you vote for that person. But what you don't know is that that person has done a deal with other people, and his preferences go to them.
yeah,
So in effect, you're voting for somebody that you don't like, you don't want, and that's how they get in. And
mm,
that's how you get some of the creatures that have arisen in Parliament. And that's how they get in there. So we worked out that if we stop voting, it removes those preferences
yes,
completely.
Yes, we've got to
They
stop
can no
voting.
longer, they can, and ultimately, ultimately, if 75% of the population of Australia simply stopped voting, what do they do?
Mm,
Now, of course, they'll tell you, all of the marvelous politicians will tell you that they've got a mandate to form a government. Well, you can't have a mandate if 25% of the population, it'd actually be more, because I think 28 or 29% of the entire population is employed by the government, and they'll continue to vote for the government because that's their employer.
mm,
I'm sure the UK is probably
yeah,
exactly the
yeah,
same.
yeah. But here
And
they
they'll continue. Mm,
here most people believe that that vote makes a difference, that they are getting a say. And I've been saying it years, and it's not, obviously it's quite an old expression, but if voting actually made a difference, we wouldn't be allowed to
they
do
wouldn't
it.
let they wouldn't let you do it.
No,
Exactly
no, it'd
right.
be
No.
illegal. And they don't
Mm-hmm.
care what we think. And I've been watching the Bilderberg group for some time, and you know,
Mm-hmm.
Keir Starmer's invited over, and and you watch all of these people invited to the annual conference at the Bilderberg Hotel, and then within moments they're installed as, well, as prime minister, president, or whatever. And people really do genuinely think that ticking that box makes a difference. And what they do is the same old thing. They think, well, I've had enough of this party, so next time I'm going to vote for the opposite party, and they vote them in. And, well, they're just as bad. I'm going to vote to spite them. I'm going to vote them out. And they've got no idea that actually all they're doing is voting for a different cheek of the same arsehole.
Yeah, and they're just ticking a box on a form which never goes anywhere.
No.
It's all pre-decided. They know
Mm,
exactly who they want and how they want it. I mean, who on earth would have ever actually voted for Keir Starmer?
exactly. I like to call him Jimmy's friend.
Yeah, Jimmy's
He,
friend. Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah, the
over here
man who
we have a.
stopped him being prosecuted.
That's exactly right.
Mm,
And you say that to people, and they look at you and they go, "What?"
mm,
And that's their care factor.
yeah.
And the same thing applies across. It's like trying to teach people why they shouldn't drink tap water.
Mm.
And they look at you and they go, but it's clean.
Yeah,
The government's cleaned it.
check
You
your
know,
pipes.
they put things in, and it's all clean. And if it wasn't for that, we'd be drinking contaminated water. And you feel like saying, no, you are drinking the contaminated water. You need
Mm,
to stop it. And every
mm,
time I've seen somebody who's changed their water supply, within months, their health improves.
mm. We're very lucky here. We live on a farm, and
Yep.
we have a spring, and the water's
Yep.
pumped from the spring, so we bypass. Yeah,
Everything.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
magic.
We still filter it, but we just filter through charcoal.
We've got mains water coming into this property. And then we have a whole of house filtration, which actually filters every tap on the couple of acres. And then it comes inside. We've got a twin filter which goes into a reverse osmosis. So all of our, or because the major filters, the big filters will take out about 98, 99% of everything, but it
Mm,
won't take out fluoride. So the last stage is reverse osmosis, and that's fluoride. So all of our drinking and cooking water is RO. All of our showering and everything, including everything that we put on the garden, is all filtered. And it's critical when you're drinking Zeta. Um, it's critical that you mix it with clean water. We, I'll use ourselves as an example. When we first started, we said, "Oh, there's a bit of a taste to it. I'll mix it with a bit of orange juice,"
right,
which is the worst thing you can possibly do because it's citric acid. So effectively just completely reversed and destroyed any
right.
of the benefits that was doing. So for the first couple of months, we sort of went, oh, I don't really notice any change. Well, I went back to
Mm,
the formula, reread it, and said, no, I think we need to do this. And of course, as soon as we used in those days, we were using distilled water.
mhm.
Um, and as soon as we mixed it with distilled water, that's when the magic happened because we were getting clean water, we were getting all of the necessary electrolytes in, without diluting them at all. And I can't stress that enough. The water is so critical to what we do. And I think the more people that have clean water, the more their pineal gland opens.
Yes.
And and the more that opens, the more they look at it, exactly what you were saying, they're going, what's the point of voting for these idiots?
Mm.
And it starts to make people, I swear the people that are awake in the world have got open pineal glands.
Well, it is the fluoride, isn't it? And this is what I've been
Mm.
saying, that if you think about it, when you're a kid, you see fairies at the bottom of the garden, monsters under the bed. You
Mhm.
might have an imaginary friend. You see things that you don't see as an adult. And I looked into it years ago, and it appeared that in Western civilization, and probably everywhere now, that the fluoride content in our water is so strong that by about 9 years old, our pineal gland has calcified.
Yep.
And then we are pushed into school, and we're no longer allowed to think or use our imagination. We've got to repeat verbatim what's put in front of us and not question anything. Just
Yeah.
write down exactly what's on
Certainly
the.
not our history.
No, we're not. Yeah, it's all. And we're sort of programmed, and the indoctrination sort of begins quite early on. And by the time you're in your teens, all you're focused on is getting a job, or doing something within your education to get a better job later on.
Mm.
That's it. Um, Everything to do with your creativity seems to be destroyed. And if you, like me, right, I went to art college, and I remember being told that, oh, most artists struggle to make a living, most writers struggle to make a living, most musicians fail, most actors end up working as waiters in restaurants, and
Mm.
anything to do with our creativity is completely dismissed. And we're just pushed constantly, and I think our pineal gland is fundamental to that, and it's all
Mhm.
part of the process.
It helps you. I firmly believe that, certainly for me, that awakening happened when we stopped drinking tap water
Hmm.
and when we stopped watching all forms of media. And that
Mm,
was more than 10 years ago. And when, if anybody, if you could give anybody advice, I would just say get rid of all forms of media, clean your tap water, drink electrolyte, and that's your basis. That's your fundamental basis.
mm,
The purpose of this, I think the key with, if there was anything that had a key to it, because this is not a quick fix.
no.
This is something that happens over time. It took us, in my case, nearly 63 years to get to this point. The last 12 months have been revelationary from my point of view. I look at this and say, well, is this what gives me the ability to get to 120?
Mm.
I don't know. I'm not there yet, but I'm looking forward to it. I've got another 60 odd years to have a crack at it.
Well, one thing's for certain: we've put in our minds or we have put in our minds from a very young age that we're going to get into our 60s and we're going to retire,
Hmm.
and that the
Yep.
government will then provide us with a pension, and that is because we're written off. So I
Yep.
think subconsciously in our minds, and I've watched this, my mother go
Hmm.
through this, we hit an age where we realize through what we've been told and not the truth that we are now surplus to requirements. We're no longer going to be effective in it would be pointless to employ us because we're not going to be as good as a younger person. This is all nuts. The older you get, the more experience you have, the more you've been there, done that, you've seen the mistakes, you've learned from it. I would say
Yep.
employing somebody that's in their 70s or 80s is going to have far more um, knowledge, um, and far more experience, and probably be a lot more level-headed than anybody that they could
Their,
drag out of a
their,
university.
their people skills are a lot better.
Yeah, yeah, we
I
tend to be
mean,
calmer as we get older as well. We don't
I
react the same way.
I've been in Australia, I've been a finance broker for 25 years, mortgages and things like that. And I talk to clients, and we're doing finance to help their kids now buy houses, and
Mm,
and and it's really quite a privilege. Not giving them a mortgage because I'd rather they didn't, but seeing people over 20, 25 years and moving them through that. And we see it all the time. that conditioning for people to, you program you go to school for 12 years, and then when you finish school, you either go to university or you're in a trade. Then you do X amount until you're 65 or 67, whenever the government will allow you to retire.
Mm.
And then, as you said, you're cast out on the heap. You're
Yeah,
no longer useful.
absolutely.
And I say to a lot of our clients, they say, well, I suppose the next time I talk to you, you won't be doing this. And I look at them and I say, I can do this in time, comfortably in time, at least 80.
Mm.
And there's no reason why I wouldn't. I mean, for me, what we're doing right now and using all of the skills that I've developed over 25 years is what I do for a living. Why would I not do that? Why would I
Yeah.
not be able to help people? For me, that's the joy of what I do.
Mm.
Um, and if more people realize that they could still do that, even if it was down to 1 or 2 days a week, well, we would be a much better society, because you're not losing all of that enormous knowledge,
Yeah, I totally agree with
enormous
you.
knowledge. So,
I totally agree.
but yeah, so our fight's long term, most definitely.
Yeah.
This is going to help. This will definitely help people. There's no question about that. And I think if people can stay away from the toxins, and
Mm.
and understand what those toxins are and how to improve them, um, everything from food to water, all of that helps with your realization, your understanding of the environment we're in, and that's that pushback that you mentioned, because it starts with us.
It does. It does. And I say this all the time. Um, people have this sort of Stockholm syndrome going on. What
It's a good description there.
yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Because the very system that they despise is the one they lean on
Mm,
whenever they are faced with a problem. And people will message me all the time saying, "No, I've just read your book, and what do we need to do to stop the next reset? How do we get through this?" And I always say the same thing. It's you. You stop participating, learn to
yes.
meditate, turn the news off, focus on
Stick
your
your, stick your
well-being.
feet in the ground. Focus
Yeah,
on your health and
yeah.
your well-being. Focus on the being the best you. My wife does this all the time. She meditates. She does far more than I do. She does qigong. She does yoga. She focuses on being the best person she is, and she's an amazing, amazing woman. And I tip my hat to what she does. But she leads the fight. She says
Mm,
that it starts with us.
yeah,
We're the only ones that can change this process.
yeah.
And if everybody sat down one day and said, you know what, I'm just going to do this for myself, and I'll look after my neighbor, and I'll look after my relatives, but
Mm,
I'm just going to focus on being the best me that I possibly can, and give
mm.
myself time and ability to do it, then the world changes.
But one of my wife's friends, I mean, we don't see her much now, but we stayed with her. And what she would do, she'd get up really early in the morning. And the first thing she did was she scrolled on Facebook. That was it.
Mm,
And she did that. And then she'd write a list down of all the things she was going to do that day. And I remember it was a Saturday, and she'd been up since about 6:30, and she'd written a list out. And
mm.
she started scrolling on Facebook on her phone. I went out and came back a few hours later, and she's still there. She's still stood in the kitchen, hadn't moved, scrolling. She spent
A few
somewhere in the
hours.
region of 5 hours stood there, and at the end of the day, she'd done nothing. And I kept saying to her that phone is designed to do one thing: ruin your life.
Mm.
That's
Keep you
and
from
it
doing
does it
what you
in
need
many
to do.
ways, whether it's
Doesn't it?
distracting you, tracking you, emitting EMS, taking a photo every 20 seconds allegedly, without your knowledge. Everything it does, it's not for your benefit, it's for the benefit of other people, a
Yep.
certain group of people somewhere. And that's the problem. And there's this young lad, bless him. He's always asking me advice. He's really into Tartaria, and he and I and he keeps saying to me, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? And I want to write a book, and I want to start my own Facebook group, and I want to start a YouTube channel, and I want to do. And I always say the same thing to him. The best advice I can give you is to turn your phone off for 5 bloody minutes, because he's permanently on it. I say to him, you're not going to achieve any of these things if all you're doing
Just
is messing
scrolling.
around on Facebook. Turn it
Yeah.
off.
Or
Uh,
or X, and they're addictive. I watch people
yeah,
do it all the time.
I don't bother with X, and I've been asked a few times, why aren't you on X? Well, I've got an account. I was banned from Twitter, but I've got an account. I don't bother with it. Why don't you go
No.
on Rumble? Why don't you go on this? Why don't you go on that? And I said, because Facebook and YouTube is too much as it is.
Yes.
And if you want me
That's
to
exactly
continue to
right.
get the information out there, I need some time to research. I can't be uploading stuff onto half a dozen different platforms.
Well, we found you through JT.
Oh, bless him, Joe.
He's marvelous. I love watching
Mm,
him. He's a
mm,
very, he's a very stable. I love his rationale behind things.
mm.
And it's like everything. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, but question everything.
Yes, absolutely.
Ask. I love that aspect, and that's how we found you. And I'm halfway. I'm about halfway through your book, but my wife's got it at the moment. So I've sort of got a share at the moment, and because we buy physical copies. I love
That's so
physical copies of
important.
books, and so we buy physical copies of books, and because that's what we've got stacked up all behind us. They're all our conspiracy books. There's some fabulous ones in
Oh,
there.
you're
I
like
love.
this. I don't normally show people this
Yeah.
because they're
Oh, there
like
they
that.
are. Look at
Yeah,
that. They're beautiful,
they're all
aren't they?
old.
They
Yeah, it's sort of H.G. Wells, Hans Christian Andersen, old encyclopedias and old Bibles, anything at all I can
oh,
find
we've
that
we
hasn't been
came across.
bastardized.
I should go and get it. We came across one. A friend of ours came across an 18. It's an 1870 or 1880 Bible. And honestly, it's that
Mm,
thing. It's
yeah.
huge, almost A4, massive, massive thing. And it's a joy just to open it.
Mm,
It's
yeah.
just absolutely beautiful, as opposed to clicking on a link and downloading an ebook.
Oh, yeah. And I don't know. Have you heard of the author Mark Devlin?
Yes.
So Mark Devlin was on Richard Vobes a little while ago, and he said something that's really stuck in my mind. They were talking about publishing books because, as I was saying earlier on, Richard Vobes is going to be publishing Here's Any Moment Now. Um, and Richard's anti Amazon, he's anti
Yeah.
ebook.
Like
And
John
Mark,
Homer.
yeah, yeah.
We've got
Um,
John's books in there as well.
have you? The falsification of history is,
Yeah.
yeah,
Fabulous, isn't it?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
brilliant. I sent him my book and he sent me that, but he's now written another one, hasn't he? I can't remember what it's called, but there's something 60th parallel, 66th parallel. I can't
But
remember.
again, this is the whole the whole Amazon thing with the distribution.
Mm.
I'd much I'd much rather buy it directly from you. And in fact, we've got to buy a few more copies. So that's what I plan to do.
Oh, thank you.
Just email you directly, and I'll get you to
Yeah,
send them
yeah, I
because
ship them out.
I'd much rather do that.
Yeah, I do it every
I
day. I
hate
ship
using
them out.
Amazon. Yep.
But I think for me, I had to use the self-publishing system on
Yep.
Amazon because I didn't have the funds to
No.
actually print 1,000 hard copies,
Well, who
hardback books.
does?
Sorry. Um,
Mm,
but the Kindle thing that Mark said was interesting. Mark Devlin. He said that if you think about Kindle, how do we know that what's submitted today is what the person's going to read on their screen 6 months down the line? What will they alter without our knowledge? And he said, because
yep.
after all, Kindle is kindling, and kindling is what you'd use to start a fire, in particular if you wanted to burn some books.
Mm,
And people will often say to me, I'll be someone will send me a message and they'll say, "Oh, I'm interested in this, and this." And I'll say, "Well, have you read this book? Have you read that book? Have you read my first book?" I don't read books. I prefer to get my information online. And I said to them, what will you do when they turn it off? Because they will. At some
mm,
point, this will all be turned off.
yep.
What happens? You need to print your photographs off, you need to buy physical books, and you need to have some vinyl. It's great having your music on in the cloud, but if they turn it off, what are you going to listen to?
You've still got DVDs, haven't you?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
and
have
old
we.
videos, and
And
yeah,
we've still got 10,000 CDs.
yeah, we've got CDs, but
And
we've
we've
got a lot
still
of
got,
vinyl too.
yeah, yeah, we haven't got, I got rid of the vinyl, much to my chagrin, but I've still got, yeah, thousands of CDs, and I've got no plans of getting rid of them.
No, it's too
I think we'll
dangerous.
need them.
I think so too, because if there was a real war to take place, and I personally believe that what we're watching is friends playing chess.
That's
Um,
I agree with that.
I
Yeah,
don't think we're going to, what we're seeing going on right now is not real.
no,
They're
it's
all,
a
I
good show
believe,
though.
it is a good show, yeah. But at some point there may well be, and the first thing that you would do, surely, if you wanted to cause a problem for another country, is
Shut down the internet.
shut the internet, turn the internet off. The
Yeah.
whole
The
infrastructure
poss
stops.
and the possibility, of course, is that a sentient AI will do that for them.
Yes, absolutely. Well, a lot of people out there think that that's actually what's running the show.
The singularity. Well, if
Mm,
they believe it's close, is it's as close as this year or early next year, but they believe that that event will happen.
mhm,
There's many that believe that it will it being the singularity event, whatever the AI is that achieves sentience, they believe it'll just virtually shut the entire banking cartels down.
mm.
Well, I, for one, will dance around on their graves.
Yes, me too. Yeah, I'll dance with you.
And maybe that's the trigger. I'm not sure, but
Oh, I'd love to see that.
wouldn't it?
Yeah,
As I said, that's popcorn worthy. That one.
yeah, yeah, I
I
think
would
so
love to
too.
see.
Absolute bunch of bankers, aren't they?
Oh, are they ever? And they even get a holiday.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Andy, for coming on and chatting.
My pleasure. It's always it's just it's such a joy to chat to people, and get this info across, and especially with people like yourself. It makes life worth it.
Oh, that's a lovely thing to say. I think for me, it's just I enjoy talking to people that resonate.
Mm.
We might not agree on everything, but we are prepared to think outside the box in a world where so many people won't.
Well, it's like the good and evil thing. You ask people, do you believe that evil exists in the world? And they look at you and they go, "Oh, well, of course." But quid pro quo, good
Mm,
has to exist as well.
yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
and that can take whatever form you choose to call it. But yeah, there's always the opposites.
Yeah. And
So
no one's born evil. It's I think it's you are a product of your environment, aren't you? And
mm,
what and I I say this to sometimes to my wife. We'll be walking along a street somewhere, and there'll be some people sat in a doorway, and they're drunk, and they're being
that's
abused.
if they're people, of course.
Yes, they could be NPCs. Yeah, but I say to her that the thing is, we don't know this series of events that put them there. And
Mm,
the other day, I gave this young girl, she probably only about 18, 19. She was going around outside a shop asking for money. And I said, how much do you need? And she said, I need £5 to get a bus to go and visit my mum in hospital. And it's normally that story. So I gave her £5. And my youngest son was with me, and he said, why did you do that? She's probably going to buy drugs. And I said, this is not my position to question what she's going to do with the money. I listened to her story. I didn't believe it, but I looked at her and could see the kind of condition she was in and thought, well, she needs to do whatever she needs to do to survive.
yeah,
And
exactly. That's exactly right.
if I can make her day a little bit better, then £5 to
Yeah,
me is still a lot of money, but it makes a huge difference to her.
it's a
And
heck of a lot to her. Mm.
if she's going to go and buy alcohol with it or whatever, fine. And I
It
felt the
doesn't
same
matter.
to her. You don't need to tell me some sort of story. If you need money, I'll help you in any way I can. And what you do with it is really none of my business. As soon as I hand that money over, I no longer am in a position to question what you do with it, but do what you need to have a better day.
Yeah.
I kind of think.
I heard when we were talking about briefly about NPCs, I heard a figure bandied around this morning by my wife that the ratio of NPCs is 5,500 to 1.
Really?
And it's an interesting number
5,500 to
because
1. I've not
it's
heard that.
apparently it's a divisor of you've heard of the 144,000, the
Yeah.
number one. So if you multiply 144,000 by 5,500, apparently you get, and I haven't tried it, about the 8 billion mark.
Right. Right.
It's an interesting
Okay.
combination of numbers. I haven't fully explored that, but it only came up this morning. But it's, when we're talking about, all of these people out there that just appear to be filling in,
Yes.
it could actually be 5,500 to 1.
Yeah. Christ. So no inner dialogue. They
Yeah, where
just
do you start with that?
exist. They're
Yep.
born, they live, they die.
They've got a process that they have to work through, and
Mm,
you can't veer them off course because
mm,
they've got to work through that patterning.
mm. Bloody hell. That's a frightening number.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Especially if you look around you and you go, well, we're all real, so that's like 20,000 to 1 to
Mm,
4.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Christ. That is frightening. But
yeah,
it explains a lot too.
it does.
Mm. I
Because
often
sadly,
wondered,
I
like,
reckon, I reckon I could pick 5,500 just down on the peninsula here.
it's funny, isn't it? Because like I've often wondered when I've walked through places like London
Oh,
and the streets are full, when these people turn the corner and they're out of my vision, do they disappear? I often wonder that.
well, that's if a tree falls in the forest and nobody hears it, did it
Mm,
fall?
mm,
It's just like there's so many aspects
mm.
to it. But yeah, with people, there's some strange. We've had some strange things happen with people. Very strange. We were in a restaurant that literally stopped, and when I mean stop, I mean the entire restaurant, everything stopped,
As in froze,
froze.
like someone hit a pause button.
Yep, long
Really?
enough for us to look around.
So like a glitch.
Yep, precisely.
Oh, that's bizarre.
Now, if my wife and I were the only real people in that place, that would explain it.
Mm,
But how did they stop it?
that's frightening.
It's been yeah, it happened a few years ago, not that long ago, 2018, and it's we've had a couple of things happen, but that was a big one, and we it still gives us shivers today,
I bet
and it
it
was long
does.
enough for both of us to look around and see water mid pour stopped
My God. And both of you experienced that at the same
same
time.
time. It wasn't just one of us.
Thank God it wasn't just one of you.
That's what we both say because neither of us should believe it.
No, but also you wouldn't want to realize that it's only you experiencing that.
Well, exactly. Then what do you say? Well,
Yeah, your partner's an NPC.
NPC. And
Yeah.
how many times do you question that? How many times do you sit here and go, "Well, am I one?"
No, no, you wouldn't be doing what
Is
you're
that
doing.
is that pineal gland thing?
Yeah, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing.
Yeah, that's
For me, I believe that we
same as
carry,
you.
yeah, and I think it's our memory. I think we carry memory in our DNA, and a lot of us are carrying memories from ancestors that lived before all of these
Mm,
things were implemented, before
mm,
1776, really. And
yes.
so this just doesn't sit right with us. There's something that
Hmm.
just doesn't sit right, and we see it in everything. And the more you dig, the more you expose. And I think that that's the difference between someone who is on this kind of journey, like you and I, and people like Richard and Mark Atwood. And we're on this journey because we just know that things aren't supposed to be like this, and we're not going to rest until it's put right, or at least exposed to as many people as possible. Um,
Yep.
and I just think it's Max Egan. I don't know if you've heard of Max. He was the one who got
No.
me into Tartaria. Um, he said to me years ago that I felt that sometimes I was banging my head against a wall getting this information out. And he said that, but if you can just wake one person up, you might have
Yeah.
saved a life.
Hmm.
You might,
Yep.
in some small
I
way,
love
it might
I
be the
love Tartaria.
catalyst. Yeah, I'm
I could
obsessed.
talk to you for hours about that because I love it. It's such an amazing topic. And it doesn't matter every country that you go to, there are buildings that you look at and you go, how
Yeah. And who? Because
and
a lot
who
of them have
and
a
when.
I mean, Australia, that's your backstory that a load of convicts came over and built these incredible structures. How lucky were
Yeah.
they to have all of these gifted
We've got a building
stonemasons?
we've got a building in Melbourne called the Melbourne Exhibition Buildings. It's an exhibition, of course,
Yeah.
built in the late 1800s. And of course, this was built off the back of the gold that they dug up.
Mm,
Except there was bugger all people out here.
yeah.
You can't have
Yeah.
had that many trades, and they did it with what? Horses and carts and picks and shovels in 4 Melbourne winters.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
And the speed that they build them,
Yeah.
and the architects normally got no previous experience.
No plans.
No, there's no
What is the
blueprints
blueprints for
anywhere.
these things?
Mm.
No. I just
And
had a
where,
crack at
where,
them.
yeah. Oh, and like people often say, well, look at the stone. Where did they get the marble from, the granite from, the stone to build these from? I say, okay, well, that's obviously a complete lie, because none of that would back up. If you held it under scrutiny, none of that would back up. But think about the glass. Forget about the
Yeah.
build, the materials other than the glass. Just for a moment, focus on the glass. Where did that come from? Where did they make it? Who made it? And who were the glaziers?
Yeah.
Just the glass alone is an impossibility if you follow the
It's
narrative.
almost like it's almost like comparing, the mathematical probability of being able to lay three 200-ton blocks of stone into the pyramids every minute of every day for 78 years or some
Mm,
ridiculous amount of
mm,
time that they calculated that it would have taken. Um, you just start doing the maths and you say, well, it can't be done. What was
mm.
there? What did you improve that was already there?
Yeah, exactly. What did you whitewash?
Yeah. What
Yeah.
did you found?
I mean, the British Empire, I mean, look
Oh,
at what it did to Australia.
yeah. And India.
Yeah, yeah. And America, wherever it's
And
gone,
yeah.
and all over the world, everywhere it's gone, it's destroyed. The true owners and
Mm,
forefathers have been completely annihilated, usually through
yep.
genocide, um, and kind of made out to be primitive, when actually I would argue that they're more advanced than we are.
Mm,
Their connection to everything, their understanding of how everything works,
very
is
much
well,
so.
and their history as well, their culture, their beliefs, their history is a lot
Hmm.
more real. It's a lot more authentic than ours. We
Yeah.
just rely on, well,
Books
proper
and
books,
books.
yeah, propaganda, indoctrination, yeah, and a whole series of
That's right.
lies. As John Hamer would say, a falsification of
A
history.
falsification of history. I
Yeah,
know. It's a fabulous book. I love that.
yeah, me too. Me
And
too. Well,
yours, as I said, I'm three quarters of half to three quarters of the way through that. And I love it. I think it's
oh,
marvelous.
thank you.
I agree with so everything that you say. You said I may not agree with everything, but I haven't found anything I disagree with you with.
Oh,
And
it's
at the
nice
end
to
of the
hear.
day, is I don't know.
No, 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 I
I have
agree.
no idea.
We
So
just
I'm
don't,
willing
do
to
we?
listen to everything.
Yeah, same here. I mean, and I often put this in books and on posts that this is what I think. What do you think? Or look into this further, or it is
Mm.
alleged, or is it possible? Or I
It is.
have been thinking this. And I never say
Yeah.
this is a fact unless I
No.
can prove it. And it's so difficult. But the information's getting out there, and
It is. One
more.
person at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
That's
thank
all
you
we have to
again.
do. My pleasure, mate. And thank you so much for having me on. I really
Oh, you're
appreciate it.
welcome. We'll pop some links in below and
That'd
in the
be great.
description, and then people
Yep.
can get in touch and change their lives.
Sounds like a great idea, mate.
Thank
Take
you,
care.
and
You
you,
too, mate.
Andy. Thanks
All right.
again.
See you, mate.
Bye bye
Cheers.
for now.